Today, I'm going to be ranking all Minecraft foods on a tier list. The tiers should be pretty self-explanatory, so let's get started with our first food, raw potatoes. Raw potatoes are, well, at least with raw, like me, you at least get like 1 to 1.5 hunger bars back. This literally gives you 1 hunger bar back. And honestly, though, any food that you can cook, there's no reason to eat food you can cook raw, in my opinion. There's very few situations where you'd ever need to, and especially with potatoes, since you only get 1/2 a hunger bar back. Bro, like in my opinion, there's really no reason to ever eat raw food. I mean, maybe I could see in some situations you maybe not being able to cook food right away, but most of the time you don't really have a reason not to cook food. Since potatoes don't hurt you, I'll put them in bad. However, like the very bottom of bad. Baked potatoes, they're about as good as bread. They're about as easy to find as bread. Well, you can honestly find more bread in villages. So I'd say bread's probably better, but at least you don't have to craft it. I mean, I'd say they're a good food. You get as much saturation as bread. They're a little harder to find than bread, but I'd still say they're good food. They're good food. Good. And I actually think you get more of them from farming than bread, since you have to like craft wheat into bread. Now we have poisonous potatoes. These literally hurt you. These can literally kill you. Like, these potatoes won't like kill you or anything. They won't hurt you. These actively hurt you. You can actually die by eating these. They're disgusting. One of the worst foods there is. There's worse, believe it or not, but this is like the second worst food in the entire game. Disgusting. Melons are kind of hard to rank. On one hand, if like in the jungle and like you're not finding a lot of pigs, sheep, cows, these can kind of be a good food source since you can get a lot of them in like the jungle, and not a whole lot of passive mobs like sheep and pigs spawn there. So and since you get a lot, that kind of can make up for the really bad saturation. So I'd put them at like the bottom of okay for that. I would put them way lower if like you couldn't get them that much, but since you can get a lot of them, still even with a lot, it's still pretty annoying to like have to constantly eat them. So yeah, they're going like the bottom of okay, but I just can't put them in bad. Okay, I just can't. Glowberries, you can get quite a few of them from caves, and for a while they can, if you're like in a cave and like you're out of food, these can be very helpful. They're better than rotten flesh, although they don't give you as much saturation. They won't give you hunger, so they're definitely better than rotten flesh, and you can get a good deal of these in caves. So these can actually be lifesavers if you're in a cave and you've ran out of your like other food sources. So for that, I'd say they're probably more helpful than melon. That fact, because he said melon, because sometimes like you're deep in a cave and you don't want to stop because you can find some diamonds, and glowberries can be helpful for that. So I'd say that situation does make them a little better than melons in the okay tier, in my opinion. Sweet berries. I don't know what to say. I mean, the same thing about glowberries and melons, though. Like in dark oak forests, though. I don't know. I just don't think you don't get as many of them as you do melons. I don't know, because on one hand, there's always a chance that you'll forget to like raise your head up when you eat these, so you can always accidentally plant them. Also, as I said, they only give 1 hunger bar back, and that's the case for all of these. So they're all not very great foods, but at least these two, they can be, at least glowberries is a situation where they can be very helpful. And melons, I guess, if you're like in a jungle, they can be helpful. Though here, massive mobs don't spawn too infrequently. And even with melons, honestly though, I might put them to bad because you can find a good bit of pigs in jungles, so I might demote them to bad. But these sweet berries, well, you don't find as many of them as you do melons, and there's always a chance you'll accidentally plant one. So I'm gonna put it in bad. They're better than potatoes though, but I'll put them in like the top of bad. Look, if 1 hunger bar back is annoying to eat, and you don't get as many of them as you do melons. You don't get as many of them, so I'll put them in bad. Golden carrots. They're not as good as cooked meat because they're very expensive to make. They're kind of expensive to make, but if you have like a good if you have a good system of gold, these can be absolutely amazing. These are a delicacy. They actually be better than meat. However, the one thing holding them back is that they're a lot harder to get than cooked meat. because with meat you can easily get them very early game. So you are gonna have to like get a good supply of gold before you can make them. However, they are actually I think better than cooked pork chop and cooked beef. So I'm gonna put them in delicacy because they are a true delicacy. Okay, now next off we have once I plug in my computer because it's about to die. I don't know why I keep letting that happen, but once I do that, I will continue with the video. Now we have golden apples. These are like golden carrots, but they don't give you as much. They give you about as much hydration as apples. However, they can be pretty helpful since they give you decent effects. They're not nearly as good as their natural apple variant, but they're a lot easier to get since you can actually craft them. They're a little expensive to craft. They're more expensive to craft than golden carrots. And they don't give you as much saturation. They do about as good as like potatoes or bread. However, they can give you some pretty good effects. They're not like insane or anything, but you can get some kind of helpful effects from them. You can get a nice little increase in eating them. I'd say I don't know. You're not really going to be eating them too much. I say they're definitely better than baked potatoes. I say like the top of good, in my opinion. Notch apples. Okay. These aren't going to be anyone's main food source because they're like ridiculously rare. However, they basically turn you into a god. There's a reason they're called god apples. Because they could basically turn you into a god for a few minutes. There's a reason that Mojang removed the crafting recipe for these. They're god tier powerful. However, you're only going to be able to eat these like a few times in your world the most since they're pretty rare. You can actually find quite a few in ancient cities, which is kind of cool. They have become a lot more common in wild updates since you can find them in ancient cities. And they are actually not too rare in ancient cities. However, apart from that, they're very rare to find. So, I don't know if I want to put them. Yeah, I'm still going to put them in delicacy because they can absolutely save you. And they can do a much better job than golden apples. Cause fruit. These are great if you run out of food in the end. However, and they do about as much saturation as baked potatoes or bread. However, there's always the annoying bit of them teleporting you off. Of them teleporting you like 8 blocks. And if you're too close to the end of an end island as you eat this, I don't need to tell you what can happen. I'm pretty sure some of you have experienced it. They're better than these guys. They're better than glowberries. I say they're like at the very bottom of good because they can be kind of helpful, but they also have that annoying feature. The very top of good. They're better than glowberries and melons since they do more saturation, but they're an okay food. They're okay. Okay. Once the recipe scroll down, carrots. Now carrots are a little harder to upgrade than meat. However, they do about as much saturation as raw meat, raw pork chop, raw beef. However, you can't. I don't know. Yeah, they're not really that good. I mean, I don't know because are they an okay food? So you can get quite a lot of them, and they're better than melons and glowberries. I actually am gonna demote melons to bad since. Like, if you're in a jungle, you can just find some pigs and get pork chop. Yeah, I'm demoting them to the top of bad. However, carrots are a little better than them. And you can, however, you can also find meat and cook that meat. So, I don't know. You're just better off finding meat and cooking that since, like, they're 3 times as good. So, yeah, I'd say they're. And you're not going to need as much since you find them in villages. And if you're in those areas, you can just find animals to kill anyway. So I'd say they're bad, but they're better than melons and berries, sweet berries, and potatoes. Yeah, they're at the bottom of bad, but carrots are at the very top. Beetroot. This gives you half a hunger point back, and there is literally no reason to even have this, as you can't make it better. At least with other stuff, you still gotta like have it so you can make it better, like carrots, beet. However, you can't even make beetroots better. They don't actively hurt you, so I'll put them above potatoes, poisonous potatoes, but they're disgusting. Apples are pretty easy to get if you're beating a lot of leaves. Still though, they're not. Bread and potatoes, I feel like bread and potatoes are just easier to get than apples in my opinion. So I'll put them at the very top of good. They're definitely better than coarse fruit and all that stuff down here. Though I wouldn't say they're like really a good food. You know what? Fine, they're really top of good. I just find bread and potatoes and meat easier to get and just better. However, apples are still a good food source. Good. Rotten flesh. This can be an absolute life sentence if you run out of food at nighttime. If you're trying to survive tonight, you're low on food, and this can be a life sentence, like at least help you survive, or you will in the long run lose hunger points. You will get your health back, so this can be helpful for surviving. And if you're like in the night, you don't have any food, you don't have a bed, these can be a life sentence, and for that, they're the top of bad. And now I'll put them below carrots, but they're better than these. They're better than these, but they're not as good as this. Now, we have raw pork chop. Yeah, obviously raw pork chop is going to be bad. It's definitely better than all this stuff, but I'm still going to put it in bad. And also, when you're getting melons and berries, you're in areas that can easily, you're probably able to find passive mobs like pigs and cows. So at least with girlberries, like you're in danger. They can be helpful in caves, but there's no real reason you'd have to eat girlberries or melons, which is why I've decided that the amount you get isn't worth having to like constantly eat them, and the fact that you can easily find animals in those biomes. So that's why I've decided to demote them and to keep glowberries here, in case you were confused about that. Anyway, now back to pork chop. There's really no reason to have any raw food because, like, it's so easy to cook it. Like, it's so easy to like get a furnace, get some planks, maybe get some coal. Maybe if you're looking like a lawyer for some coal, and cook this food and make it like twice as good, like 3 times as good. However, so that's why I can't put it anywhere higher than like the middle of bad, because they're just an overall bad food. All of these are bad foods, and I really can't put this anywhere higher than like the middle of bad for that. However, they do give more saturation in this stuff, so I'll put it here. However, at the same point in time, you can get more of these, and but you can keep this turn into something better. So I'll put it above glowberries and melons. Raw lamb. Honestly though, I don't really eat mutton. I just prefer to eat pork chop or beef because they just do better saturation objectively. And there's like no reason not to cook this. I'll put it at like I think like at the same tier as they do as much saturation as glowberries and melons. I don't know, but at the same time they also is easy to get. However, the thing about raw food is that you can at least turn it into something better. You can't do that with glowberries and melons. I'll put it in the middle of bad. I'd say it's just a little worse than raw pork chop because it does a little less saturation. So I'll put it here in bad. Rabbit, it is way too hard to get. It's not as bad as it's a little better than beetroot, I guess. But rabbit is just so hard to get. Actually, no, I'm putting it a tier below beetroot. They're not as bad as poisonous as potatoes, but they're worse than beetroot. At least beetroot, you can get them. You can get quite a good deal of them from farms. But has anyone actually tried? Most people have tried to get stuff from rabbits. It's not easy. First off, rabbits won't always drop this. I think they'll have like a 25%, maybe 50% chance to actually drop raw rabbit. Secondly, rabbits are an actual nightmare to kill. Like, bro, at least with pigs and cows, the thing with pigs and cows is that they're pretty easy to kill, so you may have to chase them around like a madman, but at least you're not going to have to do as much chasing as you do with rabbits. With rabbits, it's very possible that you can lose the amount of, more than the amount of hunger. You can lose the amount of hunger that you would get from, restored from eating this rabbit. You could lose that amount of hunger just by chasing the rabbit, and even maybe some more. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody lost more than the amount of hunger restoration you would get from eating this. I'm pretty sure you can actually lose the amount of hunger that you could get restored from eating raw rabbit from just trying to kill a rabbit. So yeah, it's easily disgusting food. Raw chicken. This is worse than everything except, yeah, this is worse than potatoes because this can give you hunger, and Unlike rotten flesh, you're not gonna need this to survive the night. Rotten flesh is first off better for that purpose. Secondly, you can't get raw chicken during the night, so at least rotten flesh can be helpful for surviving the night. You can't say that about raw chicken. Raw chicken literally gives you hunger, and also, like, I don't really see why you'd eat cooked chicken either, really. The same thing with rabbit, because just you don't find that many chickens in your world, and chickens only will drop like one of them. Well, pigs can drop multiple pork chop, cows can drop multiple beef. You can only get one chicken, so they're just a lot harder to get a good deal of than other meats. Also, with raw chicken, not only does it do a little less than pork chop, but it also can give you hunger, so you can get hungrier from eating it. At least with rotten flesh, it can be helpful for surviving the night. Chicken will not. So yeah, it's easily the bottom of bad. Worse than potatoes. Raw beef, I actually think I prefer eating pork chop, just because I just don't know if this is exactly true, but I always find more pigs in my worlds than I find cows. I think pigs are a little more likely to spawn in worlds than cows, so I always rely on pork chop. But still, beef is just as good. However, raw beef, as with all raw foods, I've already said this all before, the hunger restoration isn't very good. You don't have a very good reason to actually eat it. You don't have a good reason to eat raw beef, so it's in bad. Okay, tropical fish is worse than rabbit hide. This gives you one half a hunger bar back, and there is no way to make it better. However, unlike with beetroot, you actually have to go through the trouble of going underwater and going. You have to actually go after. You have to actually go and look for tropical fish, and not drown underwater. Survive the drowned. You have an actual. It is actually slightly challenging to obtain tropical fish for half a hunger bar back, and you cannot make that better. Yeah, this food is actually worse than beetroot. At least rabbit hide, you can cook it and it can do some decent. It can give you some good amount of hunger back if you cook it at least. You can't make tropical fish any better than it is at one half a hunger bar. And since it's a little challenging to get, since you have to go underwater, you have to risk getting killed by drowned. You can drown yourself. They're easily one of the worst foods in the game. Barely better than poisonous potatoes, because at least they won't hurt you. Although you can drown trying to get them. Raw salmon. The same thing I said about all raw foods, but fish doesn't give you as much restoration as pork and beef, in either form. So it's in the same tier as mutton. Puffer fish. This is the worst food in the entire game. Not only does it gives you basically every bad effect you can think of. It gives you hunger. It gives you a nausea effect, which just makes it a lot harder to navigate your world. And of course, it gives you poison. So basically, it gives you like every terrible effect. It gives you poison, so you lose all your health. It gives you hunger, so it's harder to get more food to restore that. And it gives you nausea, just making navigating your world to find more food harder. This is basically the ultimate pain food. This food is an actual abysmal thing to eat. Why would anyone eat this? No idea. The only reason to eat it is once to get the how do you get here advancement. After that, this is absolutely pointless. Cooked cod is as good as cooked salmon. We're finally going over some cooked foods here, people. I'd say cooked salmon. It really depends on if you like going underwater and hunting fish, and if you like fishing. It's a great food source. I don't know. I'm going to put it at the very top of good. Because I just prefer hunting. I just think it's better to just hunt down pigs. It's less risky hunting down pigs, cows, and even sheep than it is hunting down for cod. But I'm still going to put it in the very top of good. Because cooked cod, assuming this is the cooked variant, is actually a pretty good food source. Or is this the cooked variant? I think this is. But it's good. Raw cod, it's the same too as raw salmon. I told you everything I need to say. At least you can cook it. I just think the trouble, at least you can cook it. However, it's just not worth. It's just cook it. Just cook it. Like, really though, I don't get why you wouldn't cook raw food. I said it. I said everything I need to say about all raw foods in this game. Really. Now we have cooked salmon, the same league as cooked cod. Cooked rabbit. Assuming you can get the stuff to cook this, now it's worth hunting down rabbits maybe, because cooked rabbit is decent. However, I'll put it like in the very bottom of good because of how hard it is to kill rabbits. Now, cooked pork chop. Our next delicacy item. This is better than golden carrots. At least, because you can actually use it as a good food source other than notch apples. It's so cheap to make. It's a very good. It could be good food for all your game stages. Well, golden carrots are only really good for the mid to late game, like the late mid game, late game. Pork chop is also a good early game source, and it's barely worse than golden carrots. So it is truly a delicacy. It's so easy to cook. There's no reason to have raw pork chop when you can turn it into an absolute delicacy like cooked pork chop. Now we have cooked mutton. If you want to have the extra inventory space, personally, I only like to have one food source, and that's mutton, and that's pork chop, because I don't like wasting so much inventory space on food. I don't like having multiple inventory slots on food. It's just so annoying to me. But if you don't mind that, kill some sheep, cook the mutton, and it's barely worse than pork chop. I'd say it's the first great food source. Assuming you don't mind the little worse than fat saturation than pork chop, or you can hunt that and pork chop and just have an extra inventory space, and lose an extra inventory space, and just have a bit more annoying. Mutton is a great food source. Chicken, I'll put it in good. It's better than rabbit hide because it's easier to get, but also chickens only drop one, while all the other animals can drop like multiple pieces of meat, except for fish, I guess. Chickens only drop one, and their chickens are harder to find than fish, so it's near the bottom of good. But on the right side though, steak, as it's called, they finally added that parody to Bedrock Edition. Slightly worse than pork chop, because I feel like cows are a little harder to find, at least in my opinion, but they're still an absolute delicacy. Why would you have raw food when it's so easy to cook it? Suspicious stew, it can have some decent saturation. Personally, I just think all stews are kind of just dumb, because you can only hold one each in your inventory, so I feel like all stews are kind of just dumb. And especially with suspicious stew, you can get some pretty bad effects. You can get some good effects from suspicious stew, and also some really bad ones. It depends on how lucky you are, but I'm gonna put suspicious stew in. They're above glowberry. I'll put them in above glowberries and okay. If you need to eat it, you can, but they're not that good. Rabbit stew can be decent. I'll put it above. I'll put it in the very end of good tier. They can be good for surviving in another early game if you want to do that challenge, and they don't get fast saturation. However, I don't know. Just stew is just so hard to make. Like you can only make. It's hard to make. Even just one stew takes a good deal of effort to make, and it doesn't even give you that much saturation. I mean, it does, but the stew's just really hard to make, and you can only hold one each in your inventory. So, along with suspicious stew, which is probably a tier below rotten flesh, I would put what's it called? The rabbit stew, right there, but a little better than suspicious stew. Same thing with mushroom stew, and why would you make beetroot stew? Mushroom stew is as good as rabbit stew, I think, and beetroot stew, I'm pretty sure, is really better than beetroot itself. So, I'm putting it here in bad. Pumpkin pie is just too hard to make for it to actually be good. It's below all the raw foods, because at least I'm actually putting this right above these two foods. The reasoning is that it only gives, it's only about as good as bread, but it's pretty hard to make since you need a lot of different ingredients to actually make it. So once you make it, you can't. It's just hard. It's just too hard to make for it to actually be good. Probably considers putting this stew below all the raw foods for that reason alone. Probably considers putting the stew below all the raw foods, but I'm not going to for now. The cookie, same problem as the stew, but I think cookies are a little easier. Though who actually makes them? I'll put them in the same league as pumpkin pie. Kelp gives 1/2 a hunger point. It's as bad as beetroot. Honey, it's just too annoying to actually obtain for it to actually be useful. I'll put it above all the stews, but still in bad. Bread, I'll put it here in the good tier. It's a good food. Actually, I'll put it in great just because of how if you find a desert, swamp, or savannah village, you can get so much bread from those villages, and you can be good for a long time. Personally, I prefer to find a lot of pigs and get like 25 pork chop, and I'd rather have like 25 pork chop than like 100 bread. However, bread is still a great food. Great. Spider eyes, they're here and disgusting. You literally get poisoned from eating these. These are poisonous. They're actually about as good as poisonous potatoes because they literally poison you. Why would you eat these? Then there's cake. Cake, it's just too hard to make for it to actually be a good food source. And it's even harder to make than all the stews. And it's worse than all of the raw foods because it's way too hard to make. And you know what? The stews are also worse than raw foods because all these foods, and at least with lemons and berries, they're easy to get. However, the stews are not easy to get at all. You can only hold one each in your inventory, for one thing, so it's bad for storage. Also, they're just too hard to make for them to actually be good, so I'm putting them below all this stuff. And that's actually the end of my list. This is my tier list. You like it? For real though, if you have any, if you have a different opinion, if there's anything you don't agree with, please tell me. I like to hear everyone's opinion. If there's something you do differently in this tier list, please tell me. I like to see what other people have to say about things. If you have your own opinion, if you think I did something wrong, if you do something differently, please tell me. I'm curious what your tier list would be. You can even tell me how you rank everything in the comment section below. I want to hear your opinions. I would really like it because I like hearing people's opinions. So if you want to show your opinion on how you would do this, you can tell me that in the comment section below what you don't agree with. Also, here's a button to sub to me. Please do it. It would help me out a lot. And here's a button to watch my Minecraft structure tier list. Anyway, peace.